done started on your teaching of me with my boy. Can I tell you that, girl? I don't know your name. What's your name? Mine's Sarah. I'm 6 days now into having to be his mom full on. But can I tell you something? I don't mean to be whispering, but them words be on. They scare me. I'm lost. See, if me and you was a long piece of cloth, you'd be on one end with me clear across the whole wide world on the other, trying to hang on to a skinny piece of nothing. Because as good a mom as you are, folks, those are my favorite words in the novel. It's the first time that Sarah Creamer addresses Mama Red, who will become her teacher and mentor of all things mother. And I wanted to begin there tonight because those words set my heart for the rest of what I want to say. So, how did a little country girl from Anderson, South Carolina, back then population 10 or so thousand, wind up here in this grand place tonight? Champions. I stand here on the shoulders of champions who built me. I'll take you back 30 years, 5 months, and 9 days to May 14th, 1988, for my very first champion. I'm a little baby writer now. I go to Augusta, Georgia, to my very first writers' conference, the Sand Hills Writers' Conference in Augusta. I've been writing only a few months, and I took a story that I've been writing. It's called Desperation Dance. And as you all know who've been to these conferences, they set you up with a person who critiques it. And so I was set up with this woman, and I have to tell you, I was so nervous. So I go into my very first critique session with this woman. And folks, I sit down to her left, and I look down at my paper, my manuscript that I had sent in, and it had more red on it than any English teacher has ever put on a piece of paper. And I was mortified. I remembered saying to myself, Bren, crazy, what are you doing here? Look at this. As she's recounting what's wrong here, what's wrong here, what's wrong here, what's wrong here, wrong, wrong, wrong. And I'm trying not to cry. I'm really trying to be a big girl, but I'm telling myself, Bren, just hang on, girl. And when this is over, get in your car, drive back to Atlanta, where I was living at the time. So I hung on, and I thanked her. I gathered my papers, and I went through the door, and I went out in the hall and just collapsed. I collapsed against the side of the wall. A man I can see approaching from my rear, who very reverentially just says, may I help you? And I said, oh no, I'm just, I'm getting ready to leave. I don't know what I'm doing here. I must have been out of my mind, thinking that I was a writer and I belonged in this place. And I'm shaking. I got that red ink all over everything. And he said, so what's wrong? And I said, oh, I'm telling you, I just had a critique and I have no business being here. I must have been nuts. And he says to me, well, do you have another copy? Do you bring another copy with you? And I said, well, yes, why aren't you? Yes. And he said, well, I would be more than happy to look at it, give you another opinion. Tell you what, why don't we meet for breakfast tomorrow morning? I said, oh no, I'm going home. I'm going to get back on the interstate and going back to Atlanta. I don't belong here. He said, no, really think about it. Why don't you let me look at it? It's just another set of eyes. And let's have breakfast in the morning. Let's talk. So I said, all right, thank you, sir. I gave him the additional manuscript copy, and we met the next morning. And he began to teach me about writing with the senses. You know, what you hear and feel and smell. And he went through my short story and he said, see here, you can this, look, oh. And I said, oh yeah. And I just felt this energy come back through me. He said to me, the final thing he said was, Bren, you write that book and I'll give you a blur. Folks, that was Robert Olin Butler, 1988, who would go on to win the Pulitzer in 1992. And true to his word, let me just show you. Yes. And all over the years, it took a long time, all over the years, every time he saw me, he would act like he had a pencil or a pen in the air, and he would do this to me. I'm trying. So here it is on the back. Robert Olin Butler, true to his word. I call Bob my first champion. And what an important champion Bob was. So I went on, I started writing a book, and went to the Maui Writers Conference. This was in '99, and I got an agent. So things were kind of falling in place. That's awesome. There was a woman named Marianne Naples. Some of you may know who she is. She no longer is an agent now. She's the vice president and publisher of the Disney Book Group. But she signed me and tried to sell that first novel. It was a no-go. All right, fine. So I turned my attention to the second book that I wanted to write that explored motherhood. Why? Because I wanted to celebrate my own mom. We had the most fantastic relationship. And along the way there, I met Jana, J.C. Sasser. I'm living in Charleston, South Carolina now. And Jana and I were part of a writing critique group. And we met, I think, in 2003. So that was 15 years ago. And Jana and I, J.C. Sasser, fell in love with each other's work and words. And she and I split off and became our own group. And to this day, folks, nothing is clear in my way of thinking until Jana clears it. But I began to write the second novel, and when it was all said and done, she had to say the very hard thing to me, which was, no, Bren, it's not working. That woman, that character you created, that Sarah Creamer, that second novel, it was called Willie June at the time, is a monster. And I went, oh, no, I love her. I fell in love with her. I love her. The thing is, it's not on the page, Bren. Whatever you feel is not on the page. So I owe so much to J.C. Sasser, and folks, her novel, Great and Bird, is phenomenal. So I put the book up. I didn't know what to do to fix it. So I started researching the novel, actually, that I'm writing right now, too, that Claire was talking about. But then, on November 5th, 2008, I'm visiting my daddy in Anderson, South Carolina, and it's in the midst of a weaning, where you separate the mama cows from the baby cows. And if you've ever heard that sound, you will never forget it. Those sounds, folks, woke me up. And I get up about 5 in the morning and get dressed and go out to the fence, and I see the mama cows all huddled, ooh, you know, and then the baby's about 30 yards up the lane doing the same thing. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but those sounds got in my bones. And I knew in front of me was the missing piece of the story about motherhood that I was really trying to tell. So being a writer means you have to be merciless. So I have to throw that other book away. It's all right. That's what it took to get to here, you know, all right? But I kept Sarah Creamer. Loved that woman. And I kept the little boy that I had and Willie June, Emerson Bridge. And I started again, making a promise to this mother cow in the deep corner, Mama Red, that I would tell her story. So then I had to get busy doing that, didn't I? So I did. I got got busy, and along the way I was in another writing group, and oh gosh, when it was my time for my piece to be workshopped, and this was something to do with Jana. Jana wasn't in this one. A woman, when it was her turn to comment on my pages, actually got up and threw them in the floor, and she stomped them with her yellow high tops. And she said, "I will not read another word." And she was going nuts on my pages. And there, folks, looking back, I had to become my own champion. You know, we talk a lot about finding our voices as writers, but we also have to find our feet. And there I learned my feet, because I knew that was some outlier. Like, I don't know what that was, but So then I'm going to put myself in my list of my own champions. So I finished that novel and tried to get a niche. Query, 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 la la, nothing, 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 all right. But in February of 2014, I'm back visiting my daddy in Anderson, and I hear that Marla Rusoff is going to be speaking at Hub City Books. Do you remember that? In Spartanburg? And she was going to be speaking on the state of the publishing industry. And I thought, okay, you need to get yourself over there. You need to listen out and see what's happening. So I got myself to Spartanburg. And she talked about the state of publishing. And there was a line you said, Marley, you said, but the good news is, the rise of the small press. Do you remember that? The rise of the small press. And folks, when that happened, I've had this surge of energy come through me. And when she finished, I went to you, and I said, like, with paper and pencil, like, who are these small presses you're talking about? And she said, you're standing in one right now, and that was Hub City Books. And she said, also, my client, Pat Conroy, has started his new imprint, Story River Books. And I had just recently read something about it. I went, 2 months later, I'm in Charleston. Yeah, I go around. Charleston, South Carolina, at a writers' conference that I was actually helping putting on. It was about the business of writing. And after the first session, I think I moderated it or something, there was this very tall, handsome gentleman who came up and said, oh, I'm enjoying this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, thank you so much. And when you organize a conference, you know, you have to scoot off to something else. So I scooted off to something else. That afternoon, I did another session, and the same awesome gentleman comes forward again, says some awesome things, and I said, thank you very much. All right, the next day, right before lunch, I'm doing another session. And here he comes again, saying some very nice things. And this was the first time that I actually looked down to see who he is. Now I heard his name tag. And it was Jonathan Howe, University of South Carolina Press. And I went ding, 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 you know. And that was the only selfish act I did. He had left, it was time for lunch. I made a beeline. Where we were having lunch, Jonathan. And it was those round tables you sit in, and the seat beside Jonathan, to his left, was empty. Guess what I said? Yep, I plumped myself down and said I'd written a novel. And he gave me a card and said, send it to me. And the cool thing is, folks, when I sent it to Jonathan, when I hit send on my computer, I just had a knowing that I was stepping in to what had been set up for me. And it came to pass. It took about a year. It took a long time. You have to go through a bunch of readers. But it came to pass. And so I'm so fortunate because for the Pat Conroy Literary Festival, his 70th birthday, I was able to thank Pat. And in those long lines you get, you know, with Pat Conroy, and I get up to this table, and he has a book that he's autographing, and he has a little sticker note that says Bren on it, and he's writing, you know. And I said, Mr. Conroy, I want to thank you. I'm one of your Story River writers. And he said, oh, what's your last name? And I said, McClain. He said, what'd you write? What's the name of your book? And I said, one good mama bum, and here's what he did, y'all. Bump cow! And I don't know if any of you have ever cried over tears, but I was already crying, but this just streaming down my face. Wow. And he signed my book that night to Bren, the marvelous writer who now is part of the Story River history. But let me fill you in on one other little detail. 20 years before that, in 1995, I went in one of those long lines for Beach Music. I was a baby writer, I count myself back then, and I get up to him and I said, Mr. Conroy, I'm writing a book too. He stopped, he looks up at me and he says, tell me about it. So I did, I started telling him about it, and so helped me. He took out a piece of paper he had, and he wrote, Carolyn, was it Knapp? Is that the name? Yeah, Knapp, is that what it was? That was his agent before Morley. IMG Bach, street address, and said, you tell her Pat Conroy recommends she look at your work. And then he said, because you're going to need all of the advantages you could get. And folks, what he wrote in that, in 1995 was the year for this, to Bren McClain, I hope to read your novel one day. How beautiful. I stand here on the champions who built me, and now I can add to that list, very strong list, Dave and Reba Williams and the judges. And so how blessed am I? So what I'll just finally do is return to that opening that I gave you, but this time I'm going to have to read a little, okay? You can sure tell that baby there's yours. Them two colors on y'all's faces, that pretty red-brown and that white, and both of them arranged in that same exact pattern, except his is littler. Like his ears and his forehead is stamped in that red color all across the bottom of your face. Like a shadow that's fallen on you for all time. So you won't never leave him. No ma'am, Mama Red, you don't. No ma'am. Mama Red, can I call you that? See, my boy don't look like me. That's because he's not my flesh and blood. Oh, to say those words out loud. Not another soul that's alive on this earth knows that but me. The two that did are dead. I see you holding your head just as still, listening to me with that good kind of mama way you got. This ain't the first time I've seen it, though. First time was when I was a girl, 6-year-old. Old Mama Dog showed it to me. She come across our backyard one afternoon. I spotted her out of the kitchen window when I was making some cornbread for my mama before prayer meeting. Get it smooth now, girl, Mama hollered down to me. She was upstairs on her sewing machine. Don't want to see no poems, no big fat poems sticking up out of it. I took off out the screen door after that dog. I didn't see her nowhere. I wanted to call out, hey girl, but I kept quiet. Mama's room was right up over me and her window was open. It was hot and in August right before I started to the first grade. Then I heard the sound like a steady beat from under the house. So I crawled up under her, and there she was. That was her tail I was hearing. She was wagging it, and I believed it was for me. But then her legs went to lifting up, holding them out stiff like broom handles. And she let out this squeal and stretched her head back towards her tail that was all hiked up. And there she come back holding something in her mouth by her teeth and started shaking it hard like she was mad. Well, she wasn't mad. She'd had a puppy, Mama Red. She laid it real smooth in the dirt and got her tongue and licked it, and then took her nose and tucked in that baby up to her teats so she could get her a good drink. My eyes started filling up in buckets. She had 4 more of them. I scooted back that way so I could watch. I wanted to see it all. And just like you would, Mama read, she welcomed every one of them like she was saying to them, hey there, I'm your mom, and I think you're good. But then my mom started calling my name. I didn't want to leave, but I knew I had to. Before I left, I soaked up how still that mama dog was, and that made me get all still. I whispered to her, I love you. She held her eyes on me like I might matter. And then I crawled out. Mama yanked me to my feet and told me, you ain't got no time to be playing girl. I wasn't, Mama. I was just watching a mama dog have puppies. Don't you talk back to me. She slapped a fly swatter up against my shoulder. It was sweet, Mama, what I sang. Sweet. Just having babies. Anything can have babies. That ain't nothing. And you're so fat you smush it. Then she brought that swatter down, hit me on my arm. It stung some, but not like the words she said to me next. And with every one of them, she timed out a slap. She said, you ain't got you one good mama bone in you, girl. I felt like a knife had sliced me open, cut part of me out and flung it to the winds. And nobody wants to see her cry, baby, she said. You better learn to carry it, is all I can say. Papa come home from the mill that night. She made me get the dog and the puppies, carry them off somewhere. We never did have no more talk about it. But I'll tell you this now. Mama's words to me was the first stitch on a garment that I'd wear the rest of my born days. And once that stitch got to running, it kept going more and more on scene. I let her words take up housekeeping inside of me, Mama read. They inside of me now. But I don't